Okay, shalom. So I'm going to discuss the book called The Assumption of Moses. So I read the R.H. Charles translation, and I'll just get into it right now. So basically, this book, it says, according to the author of the translation, or sorry, not the translation, according to the author of the book that I read, not Moses, I mean the author of the one who compiled the book, who provided commentary and provided different ideas about it. Well, he believes that this book was originally written in Hebrew or Aramaic, but it survives today mostly in Latin. So I'm going to talk about this is an introduction to the book. This isn't the review yet, so I should probably rename this video. It's not exactly a review yet. So, okay, so he's saying that most likely it was written in Hebrew. Again, this is speculation, everything I'm going to say about this book, because it's from this person's opinion, saying that it was probably written in Hebrew between 7 to 29 AD. And he's saying that it was two distinct books called the Testament of Moses and the second book called the Assumption of Moses. And the Greek version of this work appeared in the 1st century AD. And he's saying there are a lot of phrases and sentences that were preserved from this book, from these works in Matthew 24:29, Acts 7:35, in the book of Jude, or letter of Jude, verses 9, 16, 18. Also in the Apocalypse of Baruch and Clement of Alexandria, and Origen and other Greek writers. So the Greek version was translated into Latin no later than the 5th century AD. And this Latin version, was mostly unknown to the modern world until recently. He said 40 years ago. So this book that I'm reading from, it was published 1897. So around beginning of 1800s, that's when it was mostly known, but it was revealed that this Latin version existed. Okay, where am I now? Okay, so I'm on page 16. So he's trying to say that he believes it was originally written in Hebrew. So what he has aimed to do is to translate the Latin back into Hebrew of the direction that the Pharisees were going in. Why was that? Well, he said specifically he did not agree with, it says here, the leavening of the Pharisaism. So they were mixing up their teachings with things he did not approve of. Messianic beliefs. I'm not sure how true that is. They probably were not Messianic, the Pharisees, so I'm going to just dismiss that, because I know for a fact, sure, very, very minority, probably less than 1%. So I'm going to just dismiss that. So again, this version, the Latin version, was not widely known until about 1800s, early 1800s. It was discovered by Siriani, okay, in a 6th century manuscript. try to go over it a bit quicker. I don't want to waste too much time. Okay, so he's going through names of the books attributed to the name Moses. So what I'm trying to do is to prove whether this book is canon or not, whether it is inspired, whether it is canon. But I think that word has a lot of connotations to it. But I think the more important thing, when I say canon, I mean inspired. Whether it is really inspired, whether it is something that has the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, and whether it is beneficial to us as followers of the way. Okay, so I'm getting through this introduction. It's quite lengthy. He's saying the book was, oh, never mind. This is talking about a different book, I think. Oh, no, okay. He's saying that was a zealot and was hostile to the Pharisees, and he assails them in chapter 7. The book was probably written in Aramaic. So these are all, again, speculation. Like, I want to get into. Okay. I think the Latin belongs in style. Okay. Looking at the language of Latin translation. Okay, so the game has been a long time coming. I've put this off many, many times. I was and also the understanding of this text too. So he's leaning very much um, that this book was written in Hebrew. Um, this point here. Sorry for the length of this intro, but I have to go through this introduction to get a better idea of the background of it. So this really is necessary. Okay, so I'm just scanning through this right now. Okay, I don't think he's presenting really hard evidence right now that it is in Hebrew or was written in Hebrew. Okay, so he's saying Hebrew idiomatic phrases survive in the text. I'm on page 48. So the story behind how I got this book, I was looking for the oldest version of this book, and I ended up going to a website called Scribd, and Scribd has this very old version, the one I'm reading from the 1800s, and I signed up for a 30-day trial, and I was able to download this for free. So he's saying, anyway, he said there's a Hebrewism in the word, the sentence, "I will protect." You cannot explain it in the Aramaic. What else? So that phrase he's saying is a Hebrewism. I think there are corruptions in the text, in the Latin. So he says you can understand those corruptions by retranslating it into Hebrew. Okay. He said there's another verse. It says, "He was pleased to call me in his compassion." So that's a Hebrewism according to the author of this compilation. He's saying now there's no reason to doubt that it was originally Semitic or Hebrew and not in Aramaic. Okay, let's try to get a bit more comfortable here. Okay, we have seen. Okay. All right. I'm sorry if this is a big waste of time, but I'm trying to get through the introduction. I've already read the book introduction, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything that is significant. Two independent works. Okay. Okay. I'm on page 54 now. I'm getting there. I shall go to sleep. Okay. Yes, there's many translations of this book. But it looks like the oldest one was in Greek. And the title the title itself is a little bit of it's kind of misleading because people think, the word assumption means that it's a guess, but that I think that's a wrong title to give it. It's uh, better referred to as the testimony or testament of Moses. Um, and it's interesting how this book came about because if the author is Moses, uh, or the source was Moses, then it's very interesting how he refers to, makes a prophetic statement actually as a prophecy in this book. Okay, so now he's saying, how is he a Pharisee, the author of the Testament or Testimony of Moses? He says that he is not a Sadducee because he looks forward to the intervention of Elohim on behalf of Israel and the establishment of a theocratic kingdom. He attacks the Sadducean party, okay. He was not a zealot, okay. So he's saying he was not a zealot, this is the author here. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to go through this as fast as I can. The problem is if I talk out loud, then I get distracted from what I'm scanning through. So I'll just try to read what I'm reading. He was not an Essene. The entire book is interpenetrated with national hopes and aspirations. The ideal of Essene was individualistic and ethical, not national. A concern in sacrifice. Essenes disapproved of animal sacrifice. Temple sacrifice. Essene heaven was beyond the ocean, okay. Our author was neither a Sadducee, a zealot, or an Essene. There remains no further difficulty in determining the religious party to which he belonged. He was clearly a Pharisaic quietist. He was a Pharisee of a fast disappearing type. Probably a Chassid of the early Maccabean times, upholding the old traditions of quietude and resignation. So his party, the Pharisees, were committing themselves to political interests and movements. He raised his voice to recall them from the evil ways on which they had entered and besought them to return to the old paths, but his appeal was made in vain, and so they became more secular. And this culminated in the fall of Jerusalem. That's an interesting viewpoint. The date of it, okay, so he's saying 137. No, he's not. Okay, he's saying that's not the date, okay. He's saying the book was written before 70 AD. Okay. The temple was still standing when the book was written. Okay, then Moses, Israel, the Messianic kingdom. Okay, so this video is not really, I'm not going through the book itself. I'm just going to go through the introduction. I'll do a second video regarding the actual reading. So this is, you don't really have to watch this video unless you're interested in the background of this book. So this will probably be, I don't know how much longer, but until I get through the introduction. All right, he's looking at the New Testament writers who were acquainted with this book, the Assumption or the Testament of Moses. It says St. Jude was acquainted with the Testament of Moses and with the Assumption. So Jude 9 actually is a quote from this book. And Jude 16 is composed of several clauses which agree with the substance of this book. Jude 18, the mockers appear to be another reference. And it says 2 Peter, the writer of 2 Peter seems to have used this text as well. 2 Peter 2, I think he says 13. And as well as Stephen's speech in Acts 7 is close to some of the contents. Acts 7 verse 36. I'm going to look at that. Just see what he said. I don't really recall. See if it rings a bell. Because I did read this book, and maybe I can confirm that myself. He it was who led them out after he had shown wonders and signs in Egypt and the Red Sea and in the desert during 40 years. Okay, well, maybe the way it's worded is probably close to the way it's worded here. I'm not sure. I mean, that's just a historical account. But he's looking at the language and the way it's structured, the way it's written, and if there's any similarities, kind of like plagiarism. So this he concludes that this book, The Assumption of Moses, was known to the writers of Jude and Acts 7, and probably known to the writers of 2 Peter, Matthew 24, verse 29, and also Mark 22, verses 24 to 25, and Luke 21, 25 to 26. It was known also to the writer of Apocrypha, or Apocalypse of Baruch. What is this number? 84, verses 2 to 5. Okay. All right. So now we're getting into the actual book now. So I will now close this video and start a new one a little bit later. Yeah. Okay. So I'll do a second video. It's only an introduction, and there's really not, just give you a historical background and any important points about it. So I'm going to go into the book now, or not now, but in a few minutes. I'll just step out for a little bit and then get ready. Okay.